y'all? Welcome back to another video at PQ's Corner. I want to dive into this word really quickly. Another familiar passage of scripture, a very familiar story that we've always heard. But I want to deal with those that have been feeling that you just been waiting for something. Like you just been waiting for something to happen, waiting for God to answer your prayer, waiting for this, waiting for that. I want to talk to you with a story about this. And I want to give you a lot of context. So I'm going to give you a scripture, 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 19. Okay, if you have it, it'll probably be on the screen somewhere down here. 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 19 in the NIV version, because I like the way that it reads. It says, "Then Saul sent messenger to Jesse and said, 'Send me your son David, who is with the sheep.'" Okay, I'm going to read it one more time, and then I'm going to give you context of things that happened before this, and then we're going to bring it all full circle to the end. Okay, 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 19, it says this, "Then Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, 'Send me your son David, who is with the sheep.'" Little context to understand what is going on right now. Saul is in a position where he is rejected by God. He is a king, but he is rejected by God. If we take a balcony view of Saul's life or Saul's kingship at this point, he was king for 40 years, but he was only anointed king for 2 of them, which means that for 38 years, he was ruling and making decisions over people and a kingdom without the presence and the power of God on his side. And so he was rejected because if you read in the beginning of 1 Samuel, if you read the context, what it says to you, what it suggests is that he was rejecting and not doing what God had called him or created him to do or asked him to do in the time frame that he asked him to do it. And so when he started doing his own thing, God began to speak to Samuel, and he speaks to Samuel. He's like, "Listen, we're going to anoint a new king. I know Saul is king right now, but we're going to anoint a new king." Remember, I told you context is everything. Okay, so he goes and he says, "We're going to anoint a new king." And so he goes to get the oil and get the horn of oil, and he goes and God tells him, "Listen, go to Jesse's house. The king, you will anoint a king there." And so Samuel does as God tells him to do. He goes to Jesse's house, and Jesse, he gets there, he asks for all his sons, and he brings out all his sons, and Samuel looks at one of the sons, and he's like, this must be the king because he's tall, he's handsome, he looks like a king. And the Lord speaks to Samuel in that moment. He says, "Don't look on the outward appearance. Make sure I'm going to let you know who the oil is going to fall on." Okay? And so, although he might look like a king, he might have all the things that a king has, whatever, right? He is not anointed king. He lines up all his sons. The oil does not flow on anybody. And he's like, "Jesse, do you have another son?" And so he says, "Yeah, I got another son. He's David. He's with the sheep." And so he goes and he gets David. They wait for David. David is dirty. He's the total opposite of his brothers. He's a total opposite. He's short. He's handsome, but he's not, he doesn't look like a king the way that his other brothers look like kings, right? And so he's been with the sheep. He's been with in the fields. And so he was anointed king. But here's the problem. David is anointed king, but he cannot go to the palace because Saul is still king. So the question arises, like, where does David go? Where does David go after he is anointed king? And that's where we find ourselves in the verse that I read in 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 19, where he sends for him and he is with the sheep. So I'm going to read it one more time. 1 Samuel 16 and 19, it says, "Then Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, 'Send me your son David, who is with the sheep.'" This means that although he was anointed king, although the purpose and destiny was upon him, although he was anointed for it, he was called to it, he was created for it, he had to go back to the field. And I want to encourage you right now, for those that have been feeling like, "Man, I don't know why. I feel like I'm called to this. I feel like I should be doing this. I feel like I should have more than what I have right now. I feel like I should be somewhere that I'm not right now." I want to make sure that you understand it is okay to go back to the field. There's purpose, there's destiny also in the field. But here's the thing that I want to make sure that you get, because culture tells us that waiting is just like this. That's what culture tells us that waiting is. But I want to encourage you that you're not waiting. You're not just sitting around doing nothing. You're not just sitting around waiting for your stars to align, waiting on the universe. You're not just sitting around doing nothing. As you are actually in this season, I want you to change your vocabulary from waiting to perfecting. I want to go down this road with you, because I want to help you a little bit, because you're not just waiting for something. There's something that you should be doing, right? There's something that's inside of you, a gifting that you have been using, a gifting that you've been practicing, a gifting that is inside of you that you've been working towards. And I want to encourage you that in this season, you think that you're waiting, but you're actually perfecting that gift. God is going to use your gift at the correct time. Let's fast forward this story, because we understand how the story ends. David is doing, I want to encourage you with this too. David is doing the only thing that his father told him to do. His father told him to be with the sheep, so that's what he did. And he goes to see Goliath, but he only goes to see Goliath because his father told him to bring his brothers lunch, right? And so his father tells him, go bring your brothers some lunch. And he goes, and that's where he sees Goliath. And he starts talking to his brothers like, how can y'all let this guy talk to us like that and mock us like this? And he decides that he's going to fight Goliath. He decides that he's going to fight Goliath. And we understand what happens in this scripture, what happens in this passage, right? But here's the miracle. What does David do? Let's talk about what does David do when he is fighting Goliath? We always jump to like, hey, he gets the slingshot and the 5 stones, right? But before that, he tries on the armor of Saul. He tries on Saul's armor, and he says, listen, I can't fight like this. The reason why he can't fight like this, because in the field, that's not what he was practicing. In the field, that's not what he was perfecting. The Bible talks about him fighting lions and bears, but he didn't do it with Saul's armor on. The Bible talks about how he protected the sheep and the pasture, but he didn't do it with Saul's sword. He didn't do it with Saul's breastplate. There's something in this season, there's something in your field that you have been perfecting. You're not just waiting, you got to be perfecting. If there are gifts that are inside of you that need to be used, you got to make sure that you're perfecting those gifts so that when your moment comes, you know exactly what you're going to do. David knew exactly what he was going to do when he was fighting Goliath. He picked up the 5 stones in the slingshot, and he slayed Goliath. We understand that. But imagine for a moment how many times that David was in the field just practicing his aim. Imagine how many times when David started playing the harp for Saul and the evil spirit became off Saul. Imagine how many times he was in the field just playing his harp and practicing his notes. I want to encourage you in this moment that you are not just waiting. You are perfecting something. God has his hand on you. God has gifted you with something. God has gifted you with something to do, to give to this world. And you're going to know exactly what to do when your moment comes. So I encourage you to understand and change that philosophy that you think that you are waiting the way culture tells you to wait. You're not waiting, you are perfecting. So I want to encourage you, please make sure that you like and subscribe to this channel if this is for you. But if it's for somebody else and this will help them, go ahead and share it with them as well. Till then, I'll see you next week. Have a great one.